Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the American frontier and the American frontier thesis, basically written by a guy named Frederick Jackson Turner in the late 1800s. And his argument was that the American frontier is ultimately what makes an American an American. Basically, what Frederick Jackson Turner said was that every society kind of moves through stages. So you have this stage where every man for himself, pretty much, you've got your land and it's up to you to make it whatever you want. Eventually, those people start coming together. They form governments. Eventually, they move more towards a democratic system. At the same point, they move from being self-reliant and working on farms mainly to working in factories. Eventually, they would even move forward. This is adding to Turner's kind of thesis, because in 1890, when he made it, we didn't really have a workers' rights movement. But eventually, if we fast forward to 21, we're going to see that eventually people kind of move to this post-industrial situation. But the important part is that Turner kind of noticed that in Europe, normally the whole country moved together through this process, which means that by the time you get to, democracy, you don't have too many people hanging around with this attitude anymore. And that's just kind of how it was. And what he says is that from its very beginning, America in 1890, the frontiers had maybe just started to close. But, when everybody got to America, they're all in this, like, every man for himself kind of an attitude, right? You get off the boat, and it's pretty much every man for himself. Like, yeah, maybe you have a government, hey, that's cute, whatever, but not for the most part. And as, that frontier kind of pushes west, as people look for new land, the democracy kind of builds behind it, with people that don't have to fight for themselves anymore. But you always have these people on the frontiers that are kind of pushing for this every man for yourself. This would explain the American War for Independence, for example. Why so many people push back against the British is because a lot of them were just kind of used to doing things how they wanted, because when you're in the middle of the woods, you pretty much do it however you want. And so as the country has kind of expanded throughout time, you always have these different groups of people on the frontiers that are kind of living in a certain way. And as you're bringing them into your country, you're bringing their ideas or refreshing their ideas so that they never really go away. And so in a way, the country never really gets past that kind of frontier attitude. Turner goes so far as to say, even when we look at things like slavery, that slavery was shaped in America differently than anywhere else in the world because of that frontier. Because the North and the South constantly had to fight over whether the new land that they had was going to allow slavery or not. It kind of forced this conflict, but Jackson Turner says that's because we had frontiers that we could fight over whether there was slavery there or not, and that created a lot of conflict that wouldn't have existed if there was no frontier. In other words, if there's no reason to fight over what the new states are going to allow as far as slavery is concerned, you might have a totally different kind of history of slavery in America. Everybody might have just been okay with it, what it was, but it was always in your face because they were always trying to decide what the new states would allow. And so on the frontier, what he says is you take these European attitudes and ideas, and we could add to that eventually, like in the 1850s, 1860s, these are the current American attitudes and ideas, right? And as they move westward into the frontiers, they are going to encounter and come in conflict with the frontier geographic, social, and economic realities. And so these realities of the frontier are constantly going to be pushing back on these ideas. And what Jackson Turner kind of observes is that process is what makes an American. And he went even further and he said, this is why Americans are different from anybody else anywhere else in the world, because we had frontiers for 300 years. From 1600 to 1900, it's constant that this frontier attitude and reality is pushing back on European or Western ideas, and that conflict is what makes an American. What specifically does that look like? Well, first, you have this reality that because the frontier is there, if you're willing to put in the work, and if you have the land, in America we did, um, you could make something from yourself. So this self-made idea that I can work hard to build myself up is a very American idea. A lot of people in a lot of other places in the world kind of are like, listen, this is what I have and this is what I'll have, and that's okay with me. But in America, there was always this idea that if I'm willing to work hard, I can make myself into something new. There was also kind of a conflict, this willingness to fight for what you have. And that's because on the frontier, they were constantly in conflict with different indigenous groups. And so it kind of created a different kind of American attitude. You also have this idea that American government always had to reflect the frontier. Because you're constantly giving these people votes in your society, they're always going to kind of, in some ways, I don't want to say hold it back, but maybe that's the best way to look at it. They're going to keep it kind of rooted in its earlier stages, because of that conflict between new ideas and kind of the realities of the frontier. You're also going to get this idea of upward mobility. Everybody kind of has an expectation in America that if they want to work for it, that they can move up in society. They can move into the land, work hard, chop down all the trees, and then sell it to some guy who will pay me for my work. You know, sweat equity, right? And then I can upgrade, and I can go back and I can repeat it and sell it, and I can upgrade my family's money situation. And you also have this kind of individualism in America. Everybody's kind of the king of their own castle when they're out in their log cabin in the middle of the woods, and the closest town is 300 miles from you. And so you get this kind of don't tread on me attitude in America where everybody just wants to be left alone by the government, mainly because they're used to being left alone by the government. And this attitude or idea is distinctly American. You don't find that attitude in Europe nearly as much, where people kind of want a small, limited government that just kind of lets everybody do whatever they want in their own space. That's an American idea. And Jackson Turner says that's created by the frontier. And also this idea that everybody's vote should count. And so Jackson Turner is basically looking at all of these things and he's saying, listen, the real cause of what we call an American, or the real reason why Americans are just not the same as anybody else in the world, is because we've had a frontier for 300 years. And because we've had that frontier, it has always kind of shaped or molded or mutated these European and Western and eventually even like Eastern American city dweller kind of ideas. When they go to the toxic sludge of the frontier, they mutate into something different. And that mutation keeps pushing its way back into the American system because we keep making those places states. And that's the basic idea here. So, thanks for watching. I hope you have a good day.